what I want to do is take that good and bad, and I want to kind of talk about what we, before we preview the teams that we're going up against, like what good and bad did we take from this, right? Tim Tillman's been left off the roster. We're at 26 total players, which is funny because we spent 2 full days complaining about Tim Tillman being on the team. He didn't play a single minute and he got sent home. So I'm glad everybody's energy was directed towards the correct things. But let's preview Copa America and maybe the good first, the bad, and then things that you might still be worried about. And we've hit on them already a little bit, but maybe we go a bit more in depth. And then we'll chat about our opponents. So give me something good that you enjoyed watching here.
Like from the last couple of friendlies or just in
Yeah, from
general?
from from this from this camp of two friendlies. What good did you take out of this?
Um, okay, I'll go with two good things that I took out of this.
I've got two good things too.
While Matt Turner isn't the best at playing the ball out with his feet, he has proven that he can be an elite shot stopper. Like, but this is what we knew ahead of time about him. Like, even when he was with the Revs and when he first moved over to Arsenal, the guy is an amazing shot stopper. So, second half against Brazil, that's where we saw prime Matt Turner. Like, that's the Matt Turner. That's like the best form of Matt Turner, where he doesn't have to worry about like playing it out of the back. Like, his only job is just to keep the ball out of the net. And he does it super, super well. And it's something that, I think it's a really encouraging performance heading into the tournament. Hopefully, we can give him some momentum and some confidence going into it. So I'm excited for that. The second thing, Christian Pulisic is an absolute baller. I understand that there's been like a number of poor performances across the two games, but Pooley constantly shows up for this team, and he is so like clutch for the team. And I know his goal wasn't late in the game, but still, like to score the free kick, and I think he had one of the better games against Colombia. I think he had a really really good game against Brazil, and that's nothing new for him. He knows how to play well. He knows how to play in big games, both at club and at country level, and I have like the utmost confidence in him showing up in any of the games in Copa America and being a good leader for this team. If or when I say leader, I mean like captain if Tyler Adams is not ready to go.
Mhm. Yeah, I like that. I think one of my points too was you saw players like Pulisic, Turner, Weston McKennie, and I'll even throw Joe Scally in there. I thought Joe Scally did well. I know in the group chat I was like, oh, I don't know about him. I've changed my opinion on him for the moment. I think he's done well enough where we can be comfortable with him. Um,
We don't have a choice.
and that was my thing is like, oh, I don't know about him because that's going to be our weak point. I think he did. I watched back more of the game than I usually do, and I was like, okay, you know what? He held his own way more. The times that he didn't hold his own stood out to me like, oh man, red flag, red flag. But there were so many other ones that were like, oh, that actually pretty good. Um, those guys are in great form. They're ready to get after it. And that's what you need. You need some of those players to just be beacons of light for the other players around and be like, okay, if he's going to go like that, I'm going to follow. The other thing that I really enjoyed was that, and I mentioned it before, that when they go up against the best, they're finding ways to grind out a result like they did against Brazil, right? Does it mean that our goalkeeper is making 10 saves? Yeah. You know what? You know what other game that was a really high point in U.S. men's soccer history? Belgium. And we lost that game. And Tim Howard made 16 saves and we were still in it. It is a builder. It's a builder, right? And I'm not saying that's the way we want to play every game. We don't want Matt Turner making 100 saves a game and keeping us in it and, just barely pulling out draws and stuff. But this team hasn't had one of those games in a long time against a legitimate opponent, right? Where they needed to grind out some sort of result against very, very talented players. That was important. We also learned a lot from these, right? We learned what happens if we let these players, you know, try and play out of the back and then they get sloppy on the ball and we're going to open ourselves up. It snapped something in our brain that was like, oh, we need to be better because if we don't, we're going to get killed, right? This isn't playing against the likes of, Cuba and, we're allowed to do things like that and nobody's going to hurt us. That doesn't happen here, right? Uh, so those are some good things that came out of this. Now, my list of bad things is like 3 times as long. So this is my point where I'm saying I can see both sides, but I need to take good and bad out of it, right? And a lot of the bad stem from, well, not a lot of them, but some of them stem from Greg Berhalter. His tactics still stifle a lot of what we can do. His over reliance on wide play makes us predictable and easy to defend against. His attacking formation leaves us suspect to counterattacks, which we don't transition well into. And the other part of that is the fact that we didn't change a lot of it there. And I'm going to get into the my last section of the worries, and I'll kind of hint at it a little bit here. He's not very adaptable. He hasn't shown his adaptability yet. Well, I'll talk about that later, but that was one of my bad. Do you want to do one and one bad? How many bads you got?
I could probably go on for a while with bads, but I would say I wholeheartedly agree with you on the. I mean, I kind of talked about it before, but I wholeheartedly agree with you on the Berhalter part about just the teams. Like, I understand we have good moments and we have like some decent results against big teams, but we still have an inability to get the job done and win against these teams because in knockout stages there's no ties. Like you have to win. And I understand you can go to penalty shootouts, and I certainly back Matt Turner in a penalty shootout, but I would like to go and actually just win in regular time and not have to worry about going to penalty shootouts every time and having to like bunker down and have my goalkeeper make 15 saves a game just so we can try to get in the penalties and cross our fingers and hope he guesses the right way and we move on. Like I want like this team is capable of going deep into Copa America and beating these teams outright in regular time. But I agree with you that I think Greg's tactics hold them back in doing so. I just don't think his tactics work with the personnel that gets called into the national team. And I don't think the personnel, as much as they've made mistakes in the last couple of friendlies, is the problem. I think there's so much talent there that I think you surely have to say that it's a manager issue and not a player issue.
Yeah. That being said, I also think that the players are something that we need to focus on, right? There are way too many individual mistakes, right? I mentioned the never ever losing the ball dribbling out of the back, right? If you're trying to set up in possession and you lose the ball while you're dribbling or turning from that area, well, now you're screwed. You're getting countered and you're out of shape. That being said, that comes because we're playing too slow out of the back. I don't mind the desire to keep the ball and play through the lines. I think that's the way this team should play. We talked about why earlier in the show. And we know Matt Turner isn't strong with his feet, right? That is, we've seen that. But everybody else should have the technical capability to do that. If they're all playing in these big European teams and that's the way they play, like that shouldn't be a problem. People who are like, "Oh, we can't do it," that you know, I don't buy that. Right? That's not something I buy. So the intensity needs to be higher when you're playing out of the back. The movement needs to be crisper and more exact. Right? And that Brazil goal was a prime example of it. We talked about it, right? The idea was right. We're playing out of the back. We're looking to find the high target. High target checks into the wrong space, and now we're in trouble. And we don't know how to play out of it. Ideas right, examples poor.
I don't think I have something else specific in terms of bad. I mean, like obviously there's a lot of overarching like bad things. I think uh, individual mistakes is something that has like consistently happened. The one thing I will say, and you could say that like, oh, it's you're playing in Europe, you should learn how to like play out of the back and all that stuff. But if the team is consistently not capable of doing so and is consistently making mistakes, then Greg needs to come up with another plan and stop playing it out of the back. And I'm not saying that needs to be like route one, send it deep every single time, because I don't think, like you said, we don't have a striker necessarily that's going to do that. Um, Certainly not with Balogun up front, but there needs to be some other game plan other than let's just continue to try to play it out of the back and just keep making mistakes. Like I understand you could say like normally these guys can do it, but maybe they just can't do it with this like group of guys out there. And if that's the case, you got to come up with something different rather than just sticking with it and hoping that it's going to all of a sudden just fix itself.
Yeah, I've got a couple bads, but I'll work in my worry here because we keep talking about it, and I don't want to put it off to the end. I have a worry, and the worry that I have is Greg's adaptability, right? In these friendlies, and we talked about it. The results they still matter, but a lot less than in Copa America. You can stick with a game plan. You can try and work out the kinks. You can try and find the perfect system on the fly, and the result be what it be. But at least you learn something from it, right? As you mentioned, you can't lose in Copa America. You can't play for draws and then hope for penalties or look for good for performances, and you need results, right? So how quickly is he gonna change, and how effective will he be at making those changes? That is a worry and something that I can file under the bad because he's not been good at it. But the other problem, and again, it's a player specific problem, is the fact that our center backs and our number nines are, for the most part, not super locked in. Over the course of these two games, I don't think you can look at anybody on that roster and say, yep, you're my number nine. I'm happy with that. And I'm confident you will succeed when given the opportunity to do so. Right. When's the last time we scored a goal with a number nine?
I can look it up if you want to,
Yeah.
if there was more to your worries that you want to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Please do so. Because the other problem, right? And I'll just list them off, right? Balogun's been poor. Pepe's not been much better. Sargent's hurt. Haji Wright is playing more as a winger right now than as a number nine, right? The other problem is the center backs haven't been great. I think Chris Richards showed really poorly in these two games. And I think you mentioned he was one of the lowest rated players in one of the games. And he didn't look super impressive in the other game. So that's a problem for me, right? Tim Ream has been better. He's grown into the game a little bit, but he's still 36, right? He's a little bit slower to react. If we're playing in transition, they're going to be caught out and they're going to be hurt. So there are some problem areas in this team that I worry about, as well as Greg's adaptability to say, okay, here's a problem. How do we fix it? That is going to be a big focus of these group games.
By the way, for
Yep.
number nine goals, if you're counting Haji, which I believe he was playing as the number nine in this, 2 goals against Jamaica in the semifinals of the Nations League in extra time. Actually, was he a number nine in that case?
If we're not counting Haji,
No, actually, I don't know if he was a nine because Pepe was on. I think Haji was a winger.
okay. If we're not counting Haji,
Then Pepe against Trinidad and Tobago, first leg.
so
And
we've
then if
got.
you and
Oh,
then
go ahead.
yeah, that was back in November
Yeah.
of 23. And then if you want to know Balogun, he hasn't scored since Ghana in October of 23.
So we've gone.
So it's been a long time.
So we've gone what? That's 9, 18, 27, 36, 45. So we've gone almost 500 minutes in scoring with a number nine, give or take.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, our
That's my
number
point.
nine play has been poor.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing, right? We still don't have that lockdown, and that's a problem. And really, you know, you're
I
not
almost
fixing that today.
I almost wonder at what point you start to point the finger at somebody else. Because it's like, how can you have so many guys come in and every single one of them not pan out?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because you have guys like PFOC, right, who torched it up in the leagues. He was great for young boys, and then he moved to Berlin. And I remember he played against Mexico or something. My buddy was watching because I think it was like the Nations League final or semifinal or friendly or whatever. And he's like, that guy you put at the number nine is the worst striker I've ever seen. I'm like, dude, he's the leading goal scorer in Switzerland right now. I don't know what happens, but you put on the USMNT kit and they just
They
can't
just don't
play.
know how to play.
Uh, and again, that you can point that to Berhalter too, because they might not be getting as much service or might not be involved as much. That's something I have to dive a little bit deeper into. But again, that can be pointed over there as well. But again, this group stage is going to be really important for us to get our feet wet and get settled first. So why don't we preview that to wrap this thing off and see where we're going, because we start off with the 85th ranked team in the world, currently 9th out of 10 in World Cup qualifying of CONMEBOL, with only a 1 win in 6 games. It is Bolivia. According to the Athletic article, which outlined every team, they've got a weak back line. They've conceded 14 goals in 6 games. They've only scored 4 in that time. They have a couple of good individual players, but they don't gel together, especially in the back line. They're very disjointed. Their leading goal scorer, Marcelo Martins Moreno, retired this year, and their 2 replacements have only scored 4 times in their combined national team career. Thoughts on the Bolivia game? What should we do here?
I mean, if the US doesn't win this game, that's an unmeasurable disappointment. But at the same time, if there's one thing the US loves to do, it's play down to their opponent's level. So I would not be surprised if this is not an easy game, and we make this look way more difficult than it needs to be. But I can't see any world in which the US doesn't take 3 points out of this. And if there is a world where they don't take 3 points out of this, then there's going to be the biggest target on Greg's back, or there should be at least.
Correct. Well, and that's what I said. I think, especially after that series of games that we just had, I think this is the perfect first game for us to get our feet under us, build confidence in front of a home. Like, I don't want to sound, what's the word? Insensitive here. I don't think there are going to be as many Bolivian fans in the United States as there were Colombians and Mexicans or Brazilians. I don't think the Bolivians are going to be out in huge numbers. So you go out against Bolivia, you put a couple goals in front of a home crowd, you get really, really motivated. You get an understanding of what your level is. I think it's a great first game. That being said, if we don't pick up 3 points convincingly, even if it's a struggle, I don't care if they're sitting 100 people behind the ball and they put 4 subs on without knowing. Yeah, there's a problem there, and that's a conversation to have for another day.
Yep.
That being said, after that, things get a little bit harder as we go to play Panama, which is a little bit tougher than people would expect. They've got a really impressive coach in Thomas Christensen, who is very clear and concise with the style that they play. They're a counterattack team in a 4-3-3 shape, and they are 45th in the world, and currently they're in second place in their World Cup qualifying group, tied with Nicaragua on 6 points through 2 games and only 1 goal against. They know how to play. They're going to attack, like I mentioned, on the counter. They're going to sit in. But what they gain in structure and identity, they lack in talent and firepower. Of the 3 strikers, 2 of them play in Chile and 1 in the Ukrainian league, who is leading his team in goal scoring at 13 goals through 33 games. They have some experienced MLS players like Anibal Godoy, some proven wide players like Michael Amir Murillo, former Red Bull, and currently who cares where he's at because no one's better than Red Bull. He's in France. And an up-and-coming breakout star like Coco Carrasquilla. If you can contain Coco, you probably contain the rest of the group, but that's easier said than done. Your thoughts on the Panama game?
Last time we faced Canada, we
Try
lost
again.
on penalties in the Gold Cup.
Try again.
What?
You said Canada.
I said Panama.
I heard Canada on my end.
I,
I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Hold
you're
on a
hearing
second.
things, old man.
What?
Last time we faced Panama
There you go.
was the Gold Cup where we lost in the, I think, semis in penalties. This needs to be a revenge game for that. I know most of those guys weren't on. Most of the guys that lost in that game are not on this team. However, we should be significantly better than Panama. So I don't care like what, like they could have a great coach and whatever and have a good system. This needs to also be 3 points. They need to come out. They need to take 3 points from here. They need to get 6 and then just lock it in from there. Lock in your spot in the knockout rounds immediately, right here, right now. Don't leave it to playing against Uruguay. It is a disaster waiting to happen. We should be better than Panama, and we need to show that. I'm tired of seeing our team play down to a lesser level against CONCACAF opponents. And that's ultimately what got us third in World Cup qualifying last window. So I definitely think we need to take 3 points. Like this is a game where we are the clear better team and we need to show that.
Yeah, listen, that's a really good description of that, right? This was the Gold Cup. It was our C team minus Matt Turner, Miles Robinson, and apparently Sean Johnson. So, yeah, 100%, right? I'm looking at their group. They have pretty much, for the most part, a similar layout of players, give or take 1 or 2. So, the level for them should stay relatively the same, maybe a little bit higher, where ours should make a significant jump. Now, again, the one thing I'll say, and Bolivia may do this as well, Greg has shown that he has struggled breaking down a low block, right? Trinidad, Panama, those games where teams are like, all right, screw it, I'm going to sit in and make you beat us, usually don't go well for us. So, I think it'll be a bigger struggle than people will play off, but I agree with you on what it should be. Because if you take 6 points, theoretically, you should be sitting pretty come game 3.
Oh, well, you'd almost certainly be in the knockouts at that point,
Yeah,
unless
you
there
would
was some
assume.
freak result against Uruguay.
Yeah. So, I think it'll be more difficult than people think, but I do expect our quality to shine through. And again, hopefully Greg is a little bit more flexible if we're playing, my hope is that he's going to train to play against the low block. My hope is that he's going to be able to understand, okay, this team sits in, they're going to play a 4-5-1. We're going to have plenty of possession in the back, just be able to trap the ball and move it. And then again, when we play low blocks, it's, interchange short, 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 long diagonal to 1v1s with Pulisic or Weah, right? That's the way we usually try to break it down. Is that the other way? I don't know. But I hope there is some plan to do that, because that is going to be a struggle for us. Now, finally, the United States takes on the powerhouses of our group, Uruguay, who were bounced early from 2022, looking for a bit of a revenge tournament. But they've got 2 more years of experience under them and a very, very good head coach in Marcelo Bielsa. You've got players like Valverde, Suarez, and Punez, Parwin Punez. Former MLS star Brian Rodriguez also is in that group. And they are a very, very scary attacking lineup. They are second in CONMEBOL World Cup qualifying, behind Argentina on 13 points. They're 15th in the world. Somehow they're behind us. Again, I don't get it. But this is going to be the toughest test, no doubt. If you can sit, like we mentioned, and pick up 6 points against the other 2 teams, you should be able to make this game just a placement game, right? Who's first, who's second into the knockout rounds, and move on from there.
Yeah, I personally think we need to get the 6 points before this game, because, not to be too pessimistic, but I think Uruguay has the capability to run this team into the ground. They're in great form, and I think they can generate chances just like Brazil did. The only difference is they actually have a legitimate number 9, whereas Brazil did not. And so, considering they have somebody who can put away chances and has consistently been absolutely blitzing the goal scoring in recent games for Uruguay. I believe he has scored in the last like 3 or 4 World Cup qualifying games, and then scored a hat trick against Mexico. I would suspect he would come in very, very good form, and has the potential to absolutely wreak havoc on our team, especially for making mistakes. So I'd rather not leave it to that scenario, even though the U.S. does a pretty good job of playing up to their opponents' levels and stepping up in some of the big games. So I'd rather us just take the 6 points, and whatever happens in this game happens, and hopefully we can get something out of it. But if we don't, then I don't want it to be left up to whatever the result is from Panama, Bolivia.
Listen, all I'm saying is the last time we played Uruguay in 2022, I don't know if we need to do some last minute changes, but our center back pairing that put a goose egg up, Walker Zimmerman, Aaron Long. I'm not trying to suggest anything, but
Is it too
listen,
late to make changes?
I don't know. I'm sure that the Copa America committee can make an exception for our king Aaron Long.
Well, Walker Zimmerman's in Paris, or he's at the Olympics,
Yeah.
so we
Well,
can't.
he's going to
We
go to the
can bring
Olympics. Yeah.
Aaron Long's available.
I would
That's
say,
all I'm
listen,
saying.
and who wouldn't want to see Aaron Long against Uruguay again? I know I myself would love to.
Maybe you can even win over the Euro snobs if you tell them we'll bring back John Brooks, but his partner has to be Aaron Long.
Well,
Let's see what they think about that.
that's the train problem. That's the trolley problem for USMNT fans. Pull the lever. You either get John Brooks and Aaron Long, or you get Walker Zimmerman and Chris Richards.
Pick your poison.
Oh, that's funny. Listen, I think this is a good group for us. I think we should be able to advance through here. You know, they will be able to play their style in the first few games. They're going to be able to get used to playing with each other again. And then they're going to head into the knockout rounds against, most likely, Brazil or Colombia in the opposing Group D. So again, not a bad thing that we went up and saw what we can do against them and how they play. So that'll be an interesting chess match if and when we get there. Predictions. What do you think? Do a little prediction thing here.
I'm gonna say second in the group. I mean, if you want the full group list, I think I'll go with the obvious one. I think it's going to be Uruguay 1, USA 2, Panama 3, Bolivia 4. But if we get anything outside of second in this group, I'm sorry, but Greg needs to be so far gone from this team. This is literally like, I will say it now because I want it to be true, and if it's wrong, then people can feel free to make fun of me for it. But this should be a cakewalk of a group for the U.S. Like, in terms of getting out of the group, this should be a cakewalk. They should absolutely in no way, shape, or form knock it out of this group. And if you don't, then that's a an unbelievable failure, almost to the level of like 2018 missing the World Cup.
I'll be sure to clip it and use it as a as our leading clip.
Go for
Um,
it.
listen, you took the words right out of my mouth, right? I think first or second is a lock. Dad would freak out if I said that. He hates
Yeah.
talking about locks. Um, oh, you know who else was in the group against Uruguay? DeAndre Yedlin. Call him up. Jesus Ferreira led the
Available.
line. Call him up.
Also available.
No, but on a serious note, yeah, first or second has to be. If not, right, we talked about what does Greg need to stick around for the World Cup. You need to get out of this group and you need to beat Brazil or Colombia and get into the semis. If you don't, there are questions that need to be had, I think. So
Yeah, I agree with you, but there's a part of me that feels like he's gonna get out of the group, lose to Brazil or Colombia, and then the federation is just gonna be like, it's Brazil. Like, what are you supposed to do? Like, we still back Greg for 26.
again, I think you took the words out of my mouth. It's what we want, but is it going to happen? Probably not. Who's going to take over the team?